There we go. Okay, so we're going to plunge straight in, and we've got a lot of people on the line today and lots more registered, so I'm expecting people to join us as we go along. So let's just start with an introduction. Nicola Cairncross here. I'm your host for the day, and some of you know my story and some of you don't because you've come from Facebook and Twitter and places like that. I'm a typical underachiever. In fact, this morning I've been to a breakfast meeting at my old comprehensive school, which was quite interesting because they're now a business and enterprise school, and they certainly weren't when I was there. I grew up in Worthing, West Sussex, and I was a dreamer and a reader. I was bright but could try harder at school, and I got bored very easily. I managed to scrape 3 O-levels, which I had to pay to enter because they didn't think I'd pass, and I also managed to scrape a couple of grade 3 CSE, which were in maths and typing. And let me tell you, typing's been the most useful thing that I learned at school. I had a series of failed, disastrous jobs, and I'm a serial failed entrepreneur. From about the age of 8, I was trying to get a business going, but nobody in my family had been entrepreneurial. Nobody really knew how to do it. Up until 1998, my only achievements were my wonderful children, Phoebe and Nelson, and it's Phoebe's prom today. So, I can't believe 16 years have gone past so quickly. And then in 1998, my ex-husband, bless him, had been made redundant, and we were hunting around for jobs for me because I could type, you see, and if you can type, you can always get a job. But I'd been told I was only worth about 12 grand a year. But luckily for me, I had a bit of an epiphany in the fact that I was walking through Books, etc. in Oxford Street, just opposite Selfridges there, and I was in the business section trying to find yet another book on how to make a business a success, and couldn't find anything new to read it all, or thought it didn't look very interesting. And I was literally on my way out of the shop, and a book fell off the personal development shelf in front of me. This was a section that I'd totally ignored up until now, but that book was Swimming with Piranha Makes You Hungry. It was actually a previous addition to this picture, and it had a little picture of a piranha on the front, which grabbed my attention. And it was by a gentleman called Colin Turner, who wasn't familiar to me at the time, but I came to swiftly realise that he was a very best-selling author indeed, and quite a leading light in the personal development and business worlds. But I didn't realise that when I picked the book up. But something about the book called to me, and you should always trust your instincts, because I took that book home and I read it, once, and I thought, I've missed something in this. I've got a feeling there's more that I'm missing. So I read it again, and I read it again, because I still had a feeling I was still missing something. And right at the very end, there was a tiny drawing, and it just was about the concept of financial freedom. And because I'm such a visual person, the picture spoke to me more than 1,000 words would do. So I'm absolutely delighted to say that I then went on to grasp the concept of financial freedom and how to make money, and I carried on with my reading, entirely starting with the books that Colin recommended at the back of that book. Went on to buy a hotel, No Money Down, as you probably know. I now consult with companies like Visa International and Pampers iVillage, where I'm on the experts panel. I end up working with people like Captain Lou, Jenny Amato, $1 Million Mike Morgan, and went on a cruise and got invited to a party with Robert Allen, who's another one of my heroes. I've also been privileged enough to work with people like Brett McFall, where we raised money for Great Ormond Street Hospital, and we raised money for The Big Issue. And Gary Vaynerchuk's another hero of mine. He recorded a little video for one of our events for me. And also, I'm the only woman to have been invited to speak twice at the World Internet Summit. Now, I'm not telling you this to boast. I'm telling you this because I was a secretary up until that point. That was the best I was being offered, and I knew I had more potential than that. But it takes sometimes a paradigm shift, and that's what Colin's book did for me. I went on to write my own book, The Money Gym, which I'm very proud of, and I've just finished a second set of books called The 3 Secrets of Business Success, with a set of interviews that I think you should really read because they're absolutely fascinating. Entrepreneurs from all walks of life, and that's the interview we're going to be doing today with Professor Colin Turner. Welcome to the call. I'm so delighted to welcome you.
Oh, Nicola, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it was a wonderful moment when I came home and found your email in my inbox, and interestingly enough, someone had sent you a screen clip of a review I did of the book back in 2003. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. It's very unusual because it came out of the blue completely, and they say everything happens at the right time.
Yeah.
I received a screenshot of a very appreciative testimonial as far as I was concerned. I thought, this is terrific. And then I checked it out and seen that you'd written it 10 years earlier, and I thought, well, you know, I've always believed in following things through, so I contacted you and said, look, you know, thank you so much indeed, you know, what can we do? And then the next thing is we're doing this webinar. So perhaps the timing was wrong 10 years ago, but the timing certainly seems to be right now. So
yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how you get these gut instincts and feelings about doing things. It's just bizarre.
Well, that's the most important thing, but most people, unfortunately, don't follow them through. I always like to say, I wish we had second thoughts first.
Good one. Well, let's get started with the questions. So who is Colin Turner as a person? Tell us a bit about you and where you grew up and what kind of family background you came from.
Oh, righto. Well, I like to think I'm a fairly nice person. I believe I've got a gift for inspiring others to fulfill their potential, and it's a little spooky in a way because people have written to me, I suppose hundreds and thousands of letters. I've said that, you know, working with me or reading my books or reading my work or listening to my programs, something spooky has happened. Things have started to change in their lives quite phenomenally. So I think the best thing about me is I seem to bring people luck. I've always believed that luck is what you labor under concentrated knowledge, but if I can bring people luck through that work, that's great. It's an interesting start for me because, well, I was born in the Highlands of Scotland in a caravan with no heating and no electricity and no light and no water. And I actually went to 10 different schools before I was 10. Just that my father was in the services, and we sort of, in those days, there weren't sort of any quarters for people, so you took what you had. And it was an interesting upbringing because obviously I learned my business principles by farming, by learning on the farm when to plant and what to plant and how to nurture it and how to follow through, which I think is a very sequential process, and people don't always do that. And then at school, well, I have the accolade of being put into in Scotland, you see, we had two areas in the old days when you'd get the strap quite regularly for doing things wrong in the early 50s. It was either the bright class or the dim class. I was in the dim class, and eventually when I did leave school, I had 4 O-levels, including art and woodwork. Basically, I was told that couldn't concentrate, and all the usual entrepreneurial facets are so important in life.
Yeah.
So I suppose from there, I traveled quite a lot. I went around the world for a couple of years, came back, did a couple of odd jobs, and one day I think I was working on what is now the M5 motorway, and I thought, as I was standing knee-deep in muck, I thought, well, this is a bit silly, actually. I really think if it's got to be down to me to do something. So I reviewed and started studying personal development, and I suppose I incorporated those key skills that I'd learned on that croft in the Highlands. And by the time I was 25, I was a millionaire, multimillionaire.
Wow.
And then I lost it, which was quite interesting, but I think it's important because apparently you have to lose it a few times before you can be successful. Discuss those things throughout the thing, but that was my basic start.
How did you make your first million?
Well, what I did was I